Hello and welcome to this Tales from the Hut Hangar Aviation Rarities episode about the Lockheed Model 75 Saturn. And it was a mid-1940s airliner and military transporter, and just two prototypes were built. As World War II was coming to a close, several American aircraft manufacturers turned their focus on developing and producing new airliners, mainly for the domestic market. Lockheed's President Richard Gross created his own internal Brabazon-type committee, and that was based on the British one, that was to influence and decide the direction of post-war development of British civil aviation. So Lockheed surveyed airlines and the potential customers to find out what kind of aircraft would be needed in the United States after the war. Based on this survey, the most popular classes of aircraft were decided upon, and the first was already flying, and this was the C-69L049 Constellation, or Connie, and that needed further development. The second and regional one for 14 to 20 passengers still needed to be created, but this would also be ideal to help partly replace the remarkable but war-battered DC-3s or C-47s, or in English money the Dakotas, but more about that later. Boeing and Northrop started new or evolved designs that never got very far, or they were still committed to military programs. Lockheed found itself without any real competition and decided the Model 75 Saturn would be assembled, at least up to prototype stage. Its chief designer was Donald Palmer, designer of the L-14 Super Electra, which had enjoyed some success a few years earlier. At the International Aviation Conference in Chicago in August 1944, the new aircraft was presented under the name Saturn. Lockheed, it was reported, received over 500 orders, and that's very impressive. The price of the Saturn was set at $85,000 on the condition that a number of orders would amount to $4 million. A slogan was even invented for it: to do the big business of a little airline and the little business of a big airline. It's crap, really. By the end of 1944, work on the Saturn was ramped up, with the group led by Don Palmer and later replaced by F.A. Smith. They were based in Burbank, California, where the legendary Skunk Works would soon be established. The Saturn project received various internal designations as it progressed, and that's L146, L156 and L176. The Model 75 bit is a production designation, and the L number name series is assigned at the start of production, so that's why it doesn't have an L included in its official name, as it never went in production. I did wonder why. 189,600 man-hours, or should I say person-hours, went into building the Saturn. It was a modern all-metal aircraft with tricycle undercarriage. The cabin's minimum possible distance from the ground was chosen for simplicity for passenger cargo loading and unloading. It could easily be transformed from a 14-seater passenger cabin into a mixed version carrying 10 or 12 people and cargo. It had luggage compartments at the front and back, and a toilet could also be fitted. It had some well thought out features, like the main landing gear, engine nacelles, horizontal tail, flaps were all symmetrically interchangeable, for the left side and for the right side were the same. This greatly simplified the life for small airlines, as it was possible for them to keep the costs down and lower the amount of spares they needed to hold. The aircraft was intended for operation from unprepared airfields. Much attention was paid to improving operational data, reducing maintenance costs, operating costs, and maximising efficiency. By 1946, it turned out the aircraft was more expensive than previously announced. The new price was $100,000, and that really became an issue. The Saturn was designed for a radial 9-cylinder Continental GR9A engine. That was development of the Wright R975 Whirlwind engine, produced under licence, and that was also used as a tank engine. The Wright had also powered the North American BT-9 and Ryan B-4 bushplane. The first flight of the prototype Lockheed Model 75 Saturn, with the serial number 751001 with the registration November X-ray 90801, took place on June 17, 1946. Piloted by Rudy Thoren and Tony Levere, the aircraft showed poor performance speeds at close to the stall speed, which was easily eliminated by adding a wing leading edge fillet. But there was a bigger problem. It was insufficient cooling of the engine, which also turned out to be insufficient for the Saturn. Attempts to fix it were unsuccessful, and in late 1946 it was even announced that the development of the project was temporarily suspended due to the lack of a reliable engine with the required power. However, a few months later in February 1947, such an engine was found. It was a 7-cylinder Wright 744C 7BA1, better known as the Wright R1300. The Wright engine had more power, 700 horsepower, and a diameter of 250mm larger. The prototype was rebuilt and received the new designation Model 0575701. So the first flight of the updated Saturn was made on August the 8th, 1947. With the new engine, the problems of the aircraft and with the power plant were solved. The second prototype, serial number 751002, and the registration November X-ray 90802, and this was aimed at the military, was started. And this aircraft had a more flexible interior, and basically would describe it as a combi aircraft today. But only 80% of building of this second prototype was ever completed. The aviation market was now oversaturated with a huge amount of ex-military aircraft, and that's all over the world that could be used by civilian operators. The cost of a DC-3 was $25,000 to $30,000, and for a Beech 18, $3,500. In Britain as well, ex-military aircraft were also having the same effect on new types being built. This is the same story in many other countries after the war. The Saturn had no chance. When it was first announced it had orders of over 500 as mentioned earlier. Maybe that was letters of intent rather than firm orders, but in reality, at the end, total orders for the aircraft were 12. Kansas City Airways in August 1945 expressed the desire to buy 9 aircraft. Australian Aircrafts Limited in June 1945 for 3. Lockheed lost $6 million on the Saturn program, and 2 prototypes were destroyed as tax write-offs. Nothing remains of them today. For many at Lockheed, the failure of the Saturn was only commercial, and I think that is true. It was a good aircraft. The Saturn was technically very successful in many ways. This very expensive learning curve no doubt benefited them on future projects. It was also a massive oversight or cock-up by them, in missing the reality and glut of used and very much cheaper aircraft that will no doubt flood the market. So the mighty DC-3 in a way started its killing spree of seeing off new and future young pretenders. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, as always appreciated, and thank you very much.